sometimes I have a student that have a great project, and he thinks that as soon as he posts it on Twitter, it will break through. He will have a lot of views and things like that. I always tell my student that you need to connect with people to be able to get traction. Uh, don't be selfish and just go on social media and post your thing, and that's it. You need to interact with people, see what people are doing, comment on their post. We are here to help each other, so you can go on other posts and tell that what they do, you like what they do, they interact with them, so they can interact with you.
Mhm.
I think the word social is really important in social network.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host Carla Duke, and today I'm joined by Evans Bowl. Evans is an Unreal Authorized instructor, freelance teacher, and YouTuber. Today we'll be talking about his passion for teaching, his YouTube channel, his ambitions to grow the game dev scene in Tahiti, receiving an epic mega grant, and more. A big thank you to Prismatic Studios for being our season 6 sponsor. More on them later, but for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. All right, welcome Evans to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
This is another spontaneous conversation. I saw, I think, one of your threads that maybe went semi-viral on LinkedIn, and really loved your attitude, your content, and the fact that you're from French Polynesia. I think is really interesting. The fact that you've had a successful YouTube channel that's in French, and now you've started a kind of a new chapter with an English YouTube channel, and I'd love to ask you about that experience and your experience with game dev, your experience with Unreal Engine 5. So thank you for coming on and chatting with me today.
Thanks to you for having me on this show.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and I commend you for just for like learning English as a second language is not it's not easy, and I have so much
Yeah.
respect for people that are pursuing their passions with that added barrier, because it is something, it is kind of like learning another learning programming. From my perspective,
Yeah.
I'm really struggling to learn programming. I'm learning C# right now and learning Unity,
Oh.
and it's a long journey, and I see
Yeah.
learning a language like that as well. So good on you for kind of going down that path. And I guess just as a first question, how has that journey been? Has that been do you feel like you're over the hardest point now, or is there still quite a lot of challenges you see ahead of you?
For the YouTube part and the Unreal Engine, learning the Unreal Engine part, I think I'm over the hardest part. But even now, after learning Unreal Engine for 6 years, I think I've still learned just about maybe 10% of the engine.
Wow.
And uh, concerning the English YouTube channel, so I'm not a native English speaker. I think you can hear that. And uh, I'm still learning to speak English fluently. I think I can speak English well writing when I write, but
Mhm.
speaking is kind of hard for me. It's not natural for me to speak English as for the moment.
Yeah, I think you're doing an incredible job,
Thank you.
and just the fact that you're on a podcast right now is, it just speaks, I think, to the journey that you've been on. Um, I do want to talk a bit about your kind of path and your journey. I know you've got a PhD in computer science, and I know there's some really interesting knowledge that you probably have there that a lot of game devs don't. And I guess I'd love to know where you started. What was the first like memory you remember of wanting to step into game development? What was the
Uh,
thing that interested you about it?
I think, like a lot of us, I love video games since I was a child, and I think video game was the main path of my career, and as well as video games, I've always wanted to become a teacher since I was a child, because I liked the fact that you could talk to a lot of people and teach things to a lot of people to help them grow. I don't know how to say mentally,
Learn,
maybe
yeah.
make them learn and grow their knowledge. and I was always passionate by technology, so I wanted to learn computer science. And here in Tahiti, we don't have computer science is not that developed. I think uh, uh, we are maybe 10 years back from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And when I went to university, I learned mathematics and computer science, and then to have I don't know if in other countries in France we have what we call a license.
Hmm.
It's about 3 years of study after you have the bachelor,
Hmm.
and after that, I had a master's degree in computer science. Mainly the part, I think the my profile is more towards people that um, code engines
Yeah.
like Photoshop, Unreal Engine, and things like that. And uh, what where I was on the I went to a PhD in 3D,
Yeah.
uh, mainly geometry modeling using parametric grammars. I don't know how to say.
Hmm.
And after that, well, I forgot to say that when I went to PhD, it's because I wanted to be a teacher. And here in Tahiti, we don't have computer science teachers. And ah, I, I don't know. Uh, if you want to teach computer science,
Hmm.
you need to go to the university. You don't have schools where you can teach computer science except in the universities.
Hmm.
So to be able to teach in universities, I needed to have a PhD. This is why I decided
Hmm.
to have a PhD. And here in Tahiti, someone I think he was crazy enough to think that we can open a video game school here in Tahiti, even though we don't have a video game industry, uh, and we don't have anyone who works in the video game industry here in Tahiti. So yeah, I think he was crazy enough to do this. And funny enough, he decided to open the school right when I came back from France after my PhD. So
Hmm.
I sent him an email and told him that I was not in video games, but I know 3D and maybe I can teach video games here.
Hmm.
So I tried my best to learn as much as I could about Unreal Engine, even though I have never used it. And I told him I can teach it to people. So I learned it as much as I could, and here I am 6 years later. I've became an authorized instructor about 6 months ago. So I'm
Nice.
really proud of it.
Congrats, that's awesome. And one
Thanks.
thing that I think's interesting is you've been on this YouTube journey for 6 years
Mm.
as well. What was it that led you to upload that first video on YouTube and to go down that route?
Uh, for 2 years, I was well, when I started learning Unreal Engine, I wanted to become someone that people come to when they want to learn more about this because
Hmm.
I love teaching. I wanted to be the teacher, and I think that we have the I don't know if it if you say it in English, but the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
I was afraid to teach things that are not correct. So
Yeah.
this fear led me to learn as much as I could, and I was like, maybe I should take notes of what I learned. And
Hmm.
the best way I figured out was to make videos. And when I wanted to do this, I said, okay, let's try to make a YouTube channel. But
Hmm.
I was so afraid that I waited a long time before doing this. And the the day after, I think it was Christmas in Tahiti, 25th of December, and the next day I woke up and I told myself, okay, let's record a tutorial and put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And this is how it happened. And slowly but surely, I became to have a community, which I call the Happy Tikis, which means tiki in there's tikis in Hawaii,
Yeah.
in French Polynesia too, and the traduction for tiki is a person.
Okay.
So happy tikis mean happy people,
I love that.
things like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you remember the first video that, or the first tutorial that got a lot of traction, that made you think that this was, like, because obviously there must have been a time in the beginning where you just uploaded it to an empty audience. You're doing it
Mm.
for yourself, and there must have been a point where that switched, and you realized you were actually providing value to an audience that were finding you. Do you remember what that first video was that went viral, or semi that viral, that and what the title and topic was for that?
Yeah, but I think what I did well is when I decided to start my YouTube channel, I wanted to do it the right way. So I've learned a lot of things of how to have a YouTube channel. And when I've posted my first video, I've posted it on French communities, French and American communities. So I've already got some traction at this time. And I think the first topic that went really well was Niagara
Hmm.
VFX with Unreal Engine. It was really new. It was in early access. And someone in the French community told me, "Yeah, you should learn Niagara." So I told myself, "Okay, yeah, I will learn Niagara." And this is when it started taking traction. But I'm more of a generalist.
Hmm.
I think what people like, apart from the topic, is my way of teaching, because when I teach, I love to give to tell people why I do things like this and like that. And
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of Unreal, obviously Unreal Engine 5 has come out in the last year. I'd
mm.
love to know what's one of your favorite, new features or new parts of Unreal Engine 5 that you are just in love with.
For me, there are obviously two parts that Unreal Engine talks a lot about. Epic Games talks a lot about. It's first Lumen,
Hmm.
because when I was studying 3D during my PhD, ray tracing was like the graal of the thing that everyone wanted to do. And just to compute a single image using ray tracing, it took around maybe an hour to calculate to compute even one image, one picture. So now that you can see that Lumen with global illumination and ray tracing, you can have 60 FPS
Mm.
with a computer that everyone have. It's quite mind blowing.
Yeah.
And the second part, of course, is Nanite, because during my PhD, what I was doing is like procedural generation of fruits, so
Hmm.
that robots can try and recognize fruits when harvesting them. And so I invented a grammar, what we call a grammar. It's like a text that
Hmm.
generates a lot of an algorithm that generates a lot of different shapes of tomatoes, grapes, and everything like that. And I remember that I had to code my own engine, my own
Hmm.
rendering engine to show my tomatoes. And a single tomato had like 1 million vertices. And just to show this, I had to wait around 20 minutes just to
Yeah.
show a single tomato with 1 million vertices. So today, when I see a nanite that has billions or trillions of vertices and works like a
Mm.
charm, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and I love that this shift has happened,
Mm,
obviously, like with Unreal Engine 5, but just if you look at what computer graphics was capable of 10 years ago,
mm.
it's amazing just how much it's advanced. And um, are there any concerns that you have about it being too easy nowadays? Because obviously you're incredibly you can see the value, and you like, if you're trying to render a bunch of fruit, how much easier that would be nowadays. Do you think that there's any risks to technology being so easy to do, for people to like innovate or to see the value in the technology that's right in front of us?
Not that I think of, but maybe about the stylized size of video games.
Yeah.
So now with MetaHuman, with
Mm.
Nanite, Megascan, you can have quite realistic renderings.
Hmm.
So uh, I love cell shading. I love video games that are stylized. Like one of my favorite game of all time is the Wind Waker.
Hmm.
So maybe with realism becoming easier to achieve with Unreal Engine 5, maybe people will forget to make artistic things. Maybe they would
Mm.
like to have as much realism as they want without with and sacrificing the stylized side of video games. Maybe.
Yeah, so what I'm imagining is, yeah, just a lot of realistic games that look
Yeah.
stunning, but maybe lack the substance or
Yeah.
the art, yeah, the creativity, which is
Mm,
interesting because when you think of like indie games now, they're kind of stuck. A lot of them, in like pixel art or
yeah.
platform type games or 2D, I guess, and with this 3D realistic. Style that's able to be achieved on standard computer, probably not a standard computer, but a good computer that a
Yeah.
person can own, then yeah, that is really interesting to the kind of projects that we'll see
Yeah.
coming out.
Mm. You can see that we have that there's a lot of video games that are made by one person and that are
Yeah,
very I don't know how to say beautiful. They have a lot of polygons and
yeah,
effects and trees that look lifelike
yeah,
and things like that. And the gameplay kind of lacks sometimes.
yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes it's the truth.
Yeah, and it is an interesting time with everyone being remote now and this push towards like a metaverse and virtual environments. I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people are making the most of the technology to just create these virtual environments that don't necessarily need to be games, but
Mm.
they're realistic in a sense, and
Yeah.
and that is another conversation, another rabbit hole to go down is where Unreal, how Unreal Engine fits in this future of kind of virtual environments.
Mm.
Is that an area that you're interested in at all?
Maybe what with streaming. I
Mm,
think the next step is real time streaming because if you want to know to have the metaverse, you need to have to be able to push a lot of polygons in the internet connection. And I can't wait to see what Epic Games and other studios are able to do with these kind of technologies.
yeah.
I love AR,
Hmm.
augmented reality. VR, not that much because I always have motion sickness
Yeah.
when I put a headset on, and I think that the metaverse for me is like something like I don't know how to say. I watched the Open Metaverse podcast by Mark Petit and Patrick Cozy,
Hmm.
and in the first episode of the podcast, they say that we have achieved a lot of milestones. The first one was the personal computer.
Hmm.
Then we had the smartphone, which allows us to be connected to the internet even anytime.
Hmm.
And the metaverse is like the virtual world coming into the reality, the real world.
Mm.
So I think that what's interesting to me is maybe the AR part of this whole thing, the fact that you can see 3D things in the real world. I think it can be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting with Epic Games raised I think $1 billion
Yeah.
to push towards this metaverse vision, and I wonder if being an Unreal authorized instructor now, if in the next couple years time that is a market that you're trying to educate, so that
Yeah.
is interesting. I'm curious to know what kind of value you can provide to people learning how to work in the space.
Actually, what I love the most is I know that Unreal Engine with Unreal Engine you can do a lot of things, ArcViz, multiplayer games. But what I love the most is gameplay programming.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure if I will be interested in going into the metaverse. Maybe doing video games for the metaverse. I don't know. I don't really know because I'm not that interested in this topic right now.
Yeah.
What I love the most is try to create fun, to make new gameplay ideas and things like that. Quoi.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like on that note, so you received an Epic mega grant to
Yeah,
develop a course on how to recreate a game. If I understand that correctly, do you mind just explaining a bit of how that came about and what the project is, and maybe when people might be able to expect to
Yeah.
see some work from that?
So actually, before the podcast, I was recording the online course. So
Awesome.
this is I wanted to create my version of what an online course about game dev should be. What I wanted to do is that I've always saw that when you buy courses, they only show you an aspect of creating video games. For example, you can find online courses on how to create VFX, on how to create a multiplayer game, but they always stop at the prototype phase of the video games. So I wanted to try to take it a bit further and first create my own game, a game
Hmm.
a game inspired by Polynesian culture and Polynesian mythology. We created with two friends of mine. I have a friend that does 3D and 2D graphics, and another one that makes all the sounds and musics. And we decided to create our first game, a small game that you can finish in around maybe 10 minutes. And we wanted to show people how to recreate this game from scratch, from the
Hmm.
first cutscene to the end of the game. And since I'm more of an Unreal Engine generalist, I know a lot of things about the engine, like gameplay programming, lighting, VFX, materials. So I wanted to teach all these aspects as an indie game developer.
Hmm.
And so around maybe in 2020, Mark Petit sent me a message because he liked what I was doing. And he told me that if I had a project that I would like to show, uh, they can give me a mega grant for that.
Awesome.
So I told him about this course, and he told me, go for it. You can try to have a mega grant, and we had a mega grant for this. The French version of the course should be released by the end of 2022.
Hmm.
And as soon as I release the French version, I'm going to work on the English version, which should be released around 2023, if I'm able to talk fluently enough.
Yeah.
And what we want to tell people is that uh, if you want to buy the course, you won't have how to say it, you won't have you'll have an idea of the final product, since we'll give you the video game. You can
Hmm.
get the video game for free, try it,
Hmm.
and if you want to recreate it, you can buy the course.
Mm. Hmm.
So you
Awesome.
know exactly what you're going to be doing in the course since you've played the game.
Yeah, it reminds me of a kind of like a mini sample project that's
Mm,
kind of like the Matrix project that
yeah,
Unreal provided. It seems like a similar experience where you can play the demo and then you can go into the code
yeah.
and see all the scripts and everything, which is
Like
cool.
Lyra recently, there is a game called Lyra,
Yeah,
and you can look at the source code and modify it if you want to add new game modes and things like that.
yeah,
It's the same thing, except that you have someone like me explaining to you how the code works from start to finish and how
yeah.
to recreate it from scratch.
Wow. How much do you know how long, like how many hours of tutorials that's going to be?
This is the main question that I get. Actually, I don't know, because we thought we could create this course in around 6 months,
Hmm.
and now it's been 2 years and a half. We've
Oh
been
no.
working on this since 2019, so
Yeah.
I think it will be at least 50 hours, maybe
Wow.
more than 100, maybe. Because
Wow.
I have to teach a lot of things about the engine and how to do things correctly. I take my time to explain things, how I do
Yeah.
them, why I don't do them the other way, and it takes a lot of time. But I hope that people will find the value with this course.
Yeah, I really commend you for just being able to create a piece of content that is that in depth, because just me personally, it's it's very easy to lose interest or to get bored,
Yeah,
and to stay committed to something for so long, and I think that speaks to your passion for teaching, and that
thank
is
you.
what drives you along rather than the results, I guess, or the idea that it could be really popular. It's just the idea of teaching people
Yeah.
that you're passionate about, which is really cool.
I've always thought that as long as I can teach one person, uh, everything's good for me. As long as when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't think that I would have a lot of subscribers. I was just hoping to teach what I know to one person, one person only. If I have a single like, it's the best day of my life.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really sweet. On the idea of of getting the mega grant, what advice would you give to others wanting to apply? And I mean, I've heard of game developers building a game getting mega grants. I haven't really heard of many people, because this is you're getting, I guess, a mega grant. You've already developed the game. You're now making a course to educate people on how to make the game. So I didn't realize that mega grants kind of covered multiple areas. But what advice would you give to people from your experience of getting
Yeah.
it, and how they should
Uh,
go about it?
So first, to give you more details on the mega grant, you can have a mega grant for courses like myself, for education projects, for video
Mm,
games, for plugins, for Unreal Engine, and
mhm,
for everything that can give value to people with Unreal Engine. They can
mhm,
support you with this. And I think the main tip that I can give to people is communicate on what you're doing, because this changes a lot. I've always say this to my students that even though you just know how to make a game like Pong, don't hesitate to share it with the world, because
mhm.
Gary Vee, who talks about social medias, he said that people like to see the evolution of a person and not the
Yeah.
result. So if you start from scratch and you show people your progress, they are more likely to connect with you, because they know what you do. So
Mhm,
for me, I think what helped me the most is when I started posting things on LinkedIn,
mhm.
and I had a lot of traction. So people from Epic Games started to connect with me, talk with me, and when I've submitted my project to the Epic Mega Grant, I think uh, what people need to know is that uh, what what value can you bring to people with your game or your course?
Mhm,
What Why should they help you and not another person?
mhm,
They also need to know that you are a person that they can rely on, since they are giving you money. They want to give money to someone that shows that they have motivation to go to the end of the project. So
mhm,
I think it's important. And for video games, maybe you should talk about what makes your video game special, and not
mhm.
just say that I'm going to make a multiplayer game, FPS multiplayer game. You can say that maybe you are making an FPS game where you play as I don't know, maybe I saw a squirrel on Twitter, a guy with a squirrel that has a big gun.
Some a
I
point
think
of difference. Yeah.
yeah, something that's different, that's original with your game, and um, that's it. Maybe yeah.
This episode of the Zero to Play podcast is brought to you by Prismatic Studios. Prismatic Studios is an Unreal Engine technical consultancy based in Auckland, New Zealand, focusing on development services for clients that need support prototyping, implementing and testing features, or adding development resources to existing projects. With their expertise using Unreal Engine, they can help consult and work alongside your teams to avoid common pitfalls that are so common in software and game development these days. Reach out to them today for a quote or free consultation. A link to their website can be found in the description below. Back to the show. Going deeper on when you mentioned you started posting on LinkedIn and getting the attention of people from Epic. What were the exact actions that you think led to that? Was it hashtags? Was it certain groups that you joined?
I think when you try to post on social media, you need to know how to play the game. You have to use hashtags, not too much. I've always used maybe hashtags like Unreal Engine 4, game dev, indie dev, and that's it.
Hmm.
And Sometimes I've posted things that I didn't even know that they will break through. Recently, I've posted a video on LinkedIn on my future tutorial, which is about how to make an outline shader.
Hmm.
I've posted on LinkedIn, and I've got maybe 500 likes, which is a lot
Yeah.
for me since I had only 20 usually 20 likes. And yeah, I think people like to see the progress, and maybe post a lot about videos, a lot of videos, pictures. They want to see things moving,
Hmm.
not really, not only beautiful things. You can show maybe an original gameplay mechanics, a
Hmm.
mechanic that you have implemented and that you want to show to the world, things like that. I think communication is the key to getting a mega grant, getting a publisher, and things
Hmm.
like that. I always tell my student that sometimes I have a student that have a great project, and he thinks that as soon as he posts it on Twitter, it will break through. He will have a lot of views and things like that. I always tell my student that you need to connect with people to be able to get traction. Uh, don't be selfish and just go on social media and post your thing, and that's it. You need to interact with people, see what people are doing, comment on their post. We are here to help each other, so you can go on other posts and tell that what they do, you like what they interact with them, so they can interact with you.
Hmm.
I think the word social is really important in social network.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. I on that kind of note, I feel like so I think you've given a lot of advice for people wanting to um, share. I think tutorial like content, but I was wondering if you had any advice for people just learning game development um, on its own. So people not necessarily passionate about education or making tutorials, but just passionate about games and making games. What advice would you give to someone just starting out in order for them to not, not quit and fail, or what kind of mindset do you think they should have when getting into it?
I have a secret weapon for this.
Yeah.
So I always tell people to, if you want to learn video game development, first you need to learn the basics and watch any tutorial on the internet, maybe on YouTube and things like that. But at some point, you need to start making your projects. But
Mhm.
I always see people coming to me and telling me, "Hey, I want to make the next Fortnite or the next GTA or things like that." And what happens is that you have a big project. It's easy to have an idea and start
Mhm.
developing it, but going to the last 100% of the development of the game is really hard. So I found years ago found out about I think it's Mrs. Minotaur who talked about the Game a Week challenge.
Mhm.
So the Game a Week challenge is something that helped me a lot while learning game development, because what's this challenge is you have to create a game. Let's say you start on Monday at 7 a.m. You have until next Monday at 6:59 a.m. to finish a prototype of a game and publish it on the internet.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is that you have to write a post-mortem in which you tell what went well, what went wrong, what would you do differently if you had to start all over. And what's cool about this thing is that you go through all aspects of creating a video game. You go from the phase of prototyping to the phase of writing a game design document if you want to write something like this, and publish your game and be able to read feedbacks, because sometimes people will tell you that your game is not good and you need to learn how to take this for you. And more generally, I think that the best way to level up when you learn game dev is to interact with people and participating in game jams, in communities, but make small projects. No, not
Mm.
big projects, small projects, because it's harder than creating a video game is harder than everyone thinks. You
Yeah.
have to know a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good advice, and I do, yeah, I do love game jams for that reason, is that it
Mhm.
just pushes you to get something done. I read that you do a game jam every month. Is that something that you're still maintaining and doing?
Yeah, it's funny because with my French community, I've had I try to have a live stream every Friday,
Hmm.
and during a live stream, I talk about everything related to video games. And one day, someone asked me the same question as you, and I talked about the fact that I tried to make the Game Week challenge, and that I've done it for around maybe 15 weeks in a row.
Wow.
And I told them that if you want, we can try to do this in the community and create a Game Week challenge once a month. So the first Friday of each month, I host a game jam on my French YouTube channel, and the next Friday, I tried the games live with the community. I hope that I'll be able to do it someday on my English channel as soon as I think that I speak English fluently enough.
Yeah, I mean, I've understood every word you said, and
Uh,
I think you could start that tomorrow. And that's awesome. No, that's really cool. And that, do you decide on a theme that you
yeah,
provide to your audience? What
yeah.
what
So
was the
some
last what was the last theme?
the last team it was, I think, I always try to find themes that make my audience surprised because I think the last one was I don't remember. uh, I know the one of the theme was you only have to make a game that plays with one button only.
Cool.
The last one was okay. Yes, I see. This was the oh connections with multiple controls.
Okay. Can you give an
So
example of that?
yeah, someone created a game where you control two person that are linked with a cable, and you have
Yeah.
to move to use both just joysticks to move the two person around and try
Gotcha.
to solve puzzles and things like that.
That's awesome. No, that's really exciting. Anyone listening, yeah, definitely go to, well, where can, so this is on your French channel, that on your
Yes.
French YouTube channel, Game Dev Teacher,
Yeah.
that they can find this, and hopefully soon on your English channel as well.
Yes.
They can find it. What's the name of your English channel?
Evans Bowl, my name
Evans
and,
Bowl.
first name and
Cool.
last name.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I love game jams. I just love the atmosphere that it creates when you have
Yeah,
a community that are being creative, because that's what it's all about.
yeah. And
Um,
in my community, I try to put as much good vibes as I can because everyone is welcome in this game jam.
mhm.
If you started making video games yesterday, you can participate in the game jam. I will try your game, test your game, and I will give you feedback on what you can learn from that and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. On that note, talking about games as a medium, like, just, I just love asking this question to my guests, but why do you think, why do you love games as a medium? Why don't you work in film or VFX, or why aren't you an author? Why do you love games as a medium? What is it about it that interests you, or that keeps you in it?
I think it's mainly because of the fact that I like to be challenged mentally. So and I don't like to stay here, sit and just watch a screen and just watch a movie. I like to be the actor of the
Hmm.
game and be able to live these stories by myself. I'm more of a player that likes who likes to play video games based on stories and things like that. I'm not a fan of multiplayer games, for example. I
Hmm.
mainly play video games for stories, for gameplay mechanic. I'm a huge fan of Nintendo and the way they make video games. I love their games. I play a lot of Halo too.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I like narrative games, but
Yeah.
I think I prefer short indie games at the moment.
Hmm?
I think that's just my lifestyle. it's hard for me to get into a game that has 40 hours of
Yeah.
single player, and I'm also very addicted to competitive FPS games.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's those are my two angles. But during the last Steam Summer Fest, I got a bunch of indie games
Ah,
that I've been wanting for a while. Things like a Stanley Parable and
okay.
things like
Yeah.
that
Okay.
that I've been wanting to play for a while. I haven't played that one yet, but I'm planning on getting into that next. What are some of your favorite indie games that you've played? Because I always think that these are sometimes bring up new games that many people might not have heard of. But what
Yeah.
comes to your mind when you think of a good indie game?
Since I've started my YouTube adventure, I admit that I didn't play a lot of games. So I like to play like you now short form games because
Mm.
I can make maybe 5 minute sessions, 30-minute sessions. And lately I've been playing a lot of a game called Almighty Goose.
Hmm. Cool.
It's a shooter, a 2D shooter game, a platformer. And last night I was playing Slay the Spire.
Oh,
I
cool.
love the strategy games. This one is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's great. I feel like I've got a good understanding now of where you are and what you're doing. One topic before we head off, I'd love to ask you just about the game dev scene in Tahiti, and do you feel like there is industry growing there, and what are you doing in the space to kind of engage with the community, and what do you hope it becomes?
Yeah, unfortunately, here in Tahiti, we don't have a video game industry. We, with my friends, are the only video game studio in here in Tahiti. so, so it's really hard to create an industry here. But um, there's a video game school here in Tahiti. But since there's no video game industry, we have maybe around 10% of our students that go abroad and live abroad and
Mm,
try to make their life as game devs. Maybe the other 90%, 80% stay here and work in other fields.
mm,
But my hope is that we can create not really an industry, but maybe bring skills to the world by with outsourcing, for example.
mhm,
And we have a great advantage. Here is the time zone.
mhm.
So from France, for example, we have 12 hours of I don't know how to say lag. I don't know what's the
Difference,
word.
yeah.
Yeah, difference. And so when France is sleeping, we are awake, so we can work
Mhm,
on these projects and things like that, and maybe develop this aspect of the industry, maybe outsourcing, and not really a video game industry, because here, since this doesn't exist, uh, we don't have I don't know grants here. We don't
mhm.
have grants. The epic mega grants is like we were really happy with my friends, and apart from that, here in Tahiti, the government doesn't help us develop
Yeah,
our kind of business here. I hope that someday they will. Maybe if we become popular, maybe
yeah. I
maybe they
think
will try to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with having the Tahiti Game Developers Association run by
Yeah.
Evans Bowl, and then you can start doing the government lobbying and attending the sessions for the tech, because I'm involved with the New Zealand Game Developers Association, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's such a long, there's people that have been lobbying for 20 years to
Mm.
try and get support from the government.
Yeah.
And games are especially difficult because they're not really covered within tech, and they're not
Mm.
really covered within film. And
Yeah.
even though they're kind of a combination, there's a lot of skills that overlap. It's some countries have done a really good job of seeing the value.
Mm.
Countries like Sweden and
Yeah.
Norway,
Yeah.
they have really capitalized, I think, on the talent that's emerged there. But yeah, no, it sounds like a lofty goal, and I think it takes someone like yourself, Evans, to put that flag in and say, that games are a great export model
Mm,
for a country's economy.
yeah,
And if Tahiti really wanted to look for a way to grow the economy, investing in the games industry is probably a good
yeah,
way to do that.
yeah. We have a lot of
Um,
things to tell here in Tahiti. We have a lot of stories, our
yeah,
mythology. Yeah, the same as New Zealand. We are both Polynesian culture, and we
yep.
have a lot of legends and things like that, mythology to talk about. We have a lot of stories to tell, and I think we need to tell these kind of stories.
Absolutely, yeah. Even if it's not part of an economic model of being
Yeah,
successful, but it's just a way to tell the local stories and to
yeah,
engage the youth. Which, interactive media is a great way to engage the youth these days. And
yes,
yeah, maybe there is an opportunity to get some funding to convert some stories or films into an interactive experience.
yeah,
Anyway, that's another thread that I love to talk about as well
yeah.
for
Sure.
a long time. But it's been really a pleasure talking to you and hearing about your
Thank you.
passion. Um, I Before I ask the closing question, where would you like people listening to where can they go to find your content or find where you're uploading your latest work?
I'm mainly available on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Evans Ball. I also have a Twitter, but I'm not that active on Twitter. If you want to hit me up, you can go on LinkedIn. I'm
Yeah.
I try to be as active as I can on LinkedIn because there's I think everyone from the industry is over here, and we can talk with people from the industry and connect with them and find jobs and things like that.
Do you want to do a call out to the people that are listening that are maybe French speaking, if they're listening with subtitles? Is there anything you'd like to say to them or to your community that are listening to this now?
My French community, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I tend to say on my French channel, I say Yaurana. Yaurana, this means hello in Tahitian,
awesome.
and I always say Yaurana, happy tikis, and I hope that they will continue to learn and won't be afraid to do things like but speaking on an English podcast and try
Yeah,
to reach out to the world because there's a lot of things to do, even though video games are like what maybe 30 years old,
yeah.
and we still have a lot of things to do and stories to tell, and I think it's the best way to teach things to people, to interact with people, and that's it.
If Yorana is hello, what's goodbye in
Nana.
Tahitian? Nana.
Nana, yes.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave on that note. I should have said Joanna at the beginning, but Nana for now.
Yeah,
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and
me too, yes.
yeah, anyone listening, go follow Evans on the channel. On his channels, the links will be in the description. And just as a final parting question, if someone is making a game and has reached the end of their tether and they've given up and they're considering leaving games because it's too hard, what is one sentence as a piece of advice that you'd give them to continue going or to change their perspective?
You're not that far from where you want to be. Maybe you're working hard and you don't see the end of the tunnel. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's say in English. Yeah, but sometimes people give up when they are close to their goal, and you just need to keep on going and be part of a community that can help you succeed in what you want to do. There's always people ready to give you a hand and help you become a better game dev.
Awesome. And on that note, I feel like Evans is the perfect person to reach out to on LinkedIn if you're struggling, and he'll definitely motivate you to keep going. So
Thank you very
definitely
much,
do
and
that.
thank you for having me on this podcast. It's my first podcast in English. It's very cool.
Yeah, I hope it's the first of many, because I think you did an awesome job, and yeah, yeah, I honestly, other than the accent, which I think is a good point of difference, I didn't feel any other difference to any other guest. But um
Thank you.
thanks for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. We hope you learned something about game development, the games industry as a whole, or the future of games. Follow us on Twitter at Zero to Play and let us know what you found valuable. Take care and see you in the next episode.